seeking forgiveness. A report from Canada following the Holy Father's apology for abuse at residential schools. Focus on China. U.S. lawmakers consider a bill that would spend billions to compete with Beijing. Violence in Haiti. A Catholic religious sister tells us about the latest suffering in the island nation. And wildfire threat. New developments on a historic monastery dealing with a dangerous situation in Spain. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, July 26, 2022. Thank you so much for being with us tonight on the Feast of Saints Joachim and Anne. I'm Tracy Sable. Pope Francis is spending his third day in Canada. Today, he attended his first public mass of the visit, but the main story is the reaction to the Holy Father's apology yesterday for the church's role in abuse at residential schools. Many say they welcome the message of seeking forgiveness.
And I believe that he's true. Because what he's doing, and he's manning up, and that's awesome.
Well, the man whose mother was abused at one of the schools waited outside of Edmonton's Sacred Heart Church to see Pope Francis. And the chief of the Samson Cree Nation says the Holy Father's words were important for healing. Joining us now from Edmonton, Canada, is Andrea Gagliarducci, Vatican Analyst for EWTN News. Andrea, great to see you. A lot to get to today, but first, let's start off with the Holy Father's apology yesterday. What did he have to say, and what has been the reaction to his remarks?
So yesterday the Pope had two apologies, in fact. The first one was in Moscow, which it was in the place where residential schools were and where there was a cemetery of Native Americans, First Nations, Métis, Inuit, big Native Americans population over there. And he said that he was ashamed of what the Catholics have been doing in the residential schools, that were schools, actually state-run schools, that in some cases, not in every case, were entrusted to Catholic communities, Catholic dioceses. And then yesterday afternoon, he already reiterated his apology for what the Catholics have been doing, and he said that it's part of sort of worldly situation. So when the church becomes worldly, then the church thinks that Christ cannot be on the cross, but it has to be on the ground. So it has to be with power. And that's something that he neglects. So there were two apologies, and I'm guessing that the Pope is making of this trip, a penitential pilgrimage. So there will be more.
Andrea, I'm curious, overall, how is the Holy Father being received in Canada?
So the Holy Father is being received very well. Even the press is very sympathetic, especially with the apologies. The apologies are the news of the apologies everywhere in televisions, in the newspapers, and even the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweeted very fondly about that. There are not so many people as expected somehow, but there are people, and especially the Native Americans are very, very fond. You can see that they have been enduring a trauma. Yesterday, while the Pope was making his apology, they were all crying. I mean, they cried all the time, and it was very moving, very, very important for them this. So it's a good trip so far. And now tomorrow the Pope is moving to Quebec, which is the Catholic cradle of Canada. But the reception is very good.
Yeah, and I understand the Holy Father is going to be in Canada until Saturday, visiting two more cities. What more can you tell us about maybe some of the highlights of his remaining time in the country? What will those be?
So now the Pope has just arrived in this moment and is in the stadium, the Commonwealth Stadium. So there will be a mass today. It's a mass for the Catholic community in Edmonton and for all the other dioceses of the dioceses. And then this afternoon, there will be a pilgrimage to Lac Sainte-Anne. And that's kind of important. Lac Sainte-Anne is a lake dedicated to Sainte-Anne. Today, Sainte-Anne, as you know, is the grandmother of Jesus. And the figure of grandmother is very crucial to this trip because even Native Americans love the grandmother and the grandmother of Jesus. They became very devout. So there will be this celebration. It's kind of a meeting more than a celebration, but the Pope will bless the lake, he will bless the water of the lake, and he will bless at the indigenous way. So it will be another symbol. And then we're going to Quebec, and Quebec will be the more official part of the trip. In Quebec, the Pope will meet with the authorities. In Quebec, the Pope will have other meetings. And then the Pope will celebrate a Mass. And the last day, we will go up to Iqaluit, which is in the North Pole, and it's home for the Inuit. And so the Pope will have the last meeting with this indigenous people of Canada before leaving to Rome.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for your report today. We really appreciate it. Andrea Gagliarducci, Vatican Analyst for EWTN News. Thank you again. Well, here in the United States, President Joe Biden says that he is feeling great as he recovers from COVID-19. His physician says the president's condition keeps getting better and his symptoms are almost gone. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, President Joe Biden's doctor also says the president feels well enough to resume his physical exercise regimen after completing his 5-day course of the antiviral drug Paxlovid. Meanwhile, the administration is proposing an anti-discrimination law that opponents say will hurt children.
President Joe Biden highlights new investments in America, holding a virtual meeting with South Korean company SK Group.
I'm feeling great. I hope it comes across that way as well. I hope I look as great as I feel here.
President Biden also creating more controversy. The Alliance Defending Freedom says his administration is proposing a rule that reinterprets federal law to prohibit discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation, requiring doctors to perform harmful medical procedures that seek to alter a patient's biological sex, even if the procedure violates the doctor's medical judgment or religious beliefs. America First Policy Institute President and CEO Brooke Rollins calls the sexualization of young children heartbreaking.
I continue to be stunned at the radical, progressive policies that not just one corner of the Democratic Party is putting forward, but it now is seemingly the entire party.
She spoke just down the street from the White House at the America First Agenda Summit.
And we have to ensure that the America First agenda, which is pro-family, pro-values, pro-America, putting Americans first, continues to be the driving narrative in the policy debates, and I believe we'll win. God is on our side.
And as the Biden administration celebrates the 32nd anniversary of passing the Americans with Disabilities Act, Vice President Kamala Harris uses the occasion to complain again about the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
But these abortion restrictions that are being put in place around our country by extremist so-called leaders in various states will have a disproportionate impact on people with disabilities.
Now, also this afternoon at the AFPI summit, former President Donald Trump gave a speech saying our country has been brought to its knees, citing high inflation and gas prices, and says the American dream has been torn to shreds. He also said the American people will reject the current administration in a momentous landslide in November of 2022. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
A school board in Kansas says that it will reconsider its ban on clothing with references to the devil. This move comes after a mother filed a complaint to the Hayes Board of Education, claiming the ban is, quote, religious discrimination. This week, a bipartisan group of lawmakers hopes to pass a multi-billion-dollar package that they say would improve computer chip manufacturing here in the U.S. But Republicans remain divided, saying that it is also filled with money for President Biden's science agenda. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has more.
Republicans tell me this $280 billion chip package is nothing more than a pro-China spending spree and gives the Biden administration a wide open door to continue its reckless socialist policies. And they claim that's not all.
This is supposed to be a bill that's going to be anti-China. Oh, no. Intel can still build in China. And by the way, when Communist China invades Taiwan, Intel can keep doing business in China. So how's this anti-China?
The Florida senator tells me this is the cause of our $30 trillion deficit and 9% inflation. He adds American taxpayer money should not be going to the Intel Corporation to build a new plant, especially when it made $20 billion in profits last year.
I never thought I'd be on the same page as Bernie Sanders, but he's exactly right. I mean, we're giving money to people that have money to enhance more business for them.
Some Republicans are on board with the bill. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham tells me getting a more reliable source of chip making here in the U.S. is a national security issue.
So if you wanted to bring America to its knees, one way to do that would be able to stop the flow of chips.
Now, you can sabotage a chip, or you can make it so the information that goes to that chip is transmitted back to China. We have to have a secure supply chain so that our chips are safe for us.
Senate Minority Whip John Thune tells me there is enough bipartisan support to pass it, despite the massive price tag.
And I think it is. I think it's too big, spends too much, and doesn't spend in the right areas, and it's not paid for.
The CHIPS Plus bill provides $52 billion for the semiconductor industry, including $39 billion to improve domestic facilities and manufacturing equipment, establishes a 25% tax credit and other incentives for investments in semiconductor manufacturing.
It will mean an increase in American jobs, increased manufacturing here at home, relief for our supply chains, and lower costs for the American people.
The House hopes to pass the CHIPS bill by the end of this week, and the president plans to immediately sign it. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Coming up, analyzing Taiwan's readiness amid the latest threats from China. While demonstrators are calling attention to the execution over the weekend of 4 political prisoners by the military government in Myanmar. There are fears that the deaths will derail attempts to bring an end to violence in the Southeast Asian nation, also known as Burma. While Taiwan's military conducted an annual naval exercise, Taiwan's president observed the demonstration from one of the ships. The drill involved 20 naval vessels and different fighter jets. The exercises take place as China escalates its threats to take the island by force. And joining us now to discuss is John Ullyot, Republican strategist and former National Security Council spokesman under President Donald Trump. John, welcome back. Always great to see you.
Always great to be here, Tracy.
Well, very concerning everything that we're seeing right now unfolding there in Taiwan. And as you know, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is planning a trip to Taiwan. That being said, China has really prompted some threats because of that. President Biden was asked about that the other week, and he said that the military doesn't want Nancy Pelosi to go over there. They don't think it's a really good idea. However, Republicans are backing her going to Taiwan. Your thoughts on that? Do you think she should go?
Absolutely. This was a great move by normally Nancy Pelosi. There's not a single thing that Republicans like about what she's doing. But just yesterday, Newt Gingrich and a bunch of other leading Republicans said absolutely she should go to Taiwan, and that's good leadership on her side. And then, but yet it's Biden who's undermining her and saying, hey, wait a minute, she shouldn't go over there. Whereas that's a very strong move. Some of us in the Republican Party have argued for an even more robust, even naval visits by the U.S. Navy to Taiwan and measures that would go even beyond that and would be seen possibly as provocative. But right now what it is the Biden administration is projecting weakness starting in Afghanistan a year ago, and then obviously in the Ukraine policy, and then with Putin deciding after looking at what happened in Afghanistan to invade Ukraine. And then now I know that President Biden is going to be talking to his counterpart, President Xi, next week, and we can talk about that in a bit. But the idea is that Xi sees weakness on what the West is doing with Ukraine and also what's going on in Afghanistan and that total debacle of an exit there. And so that type of a phone call that is going to be happening next week with Xi is going to basically be a one-sided dialogue, in other words, with Xi basically telling Biden what he is or is not going to do, and not vice versa.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, with President Biden telling reporters last week the military, they don't want her to go. They don't think it's a good idea. Is that typical?
Not at all typical. I mean, because this is, once again, we have strongly supported Taiwan, and this is a very strong move. Alex Azar, who was the HHS secretary under President Trump in the last year of the administration, he actually went over there himself as a cabinet member, and so that's a strong move. And so what we want to see here is we want to see projection of strength. And let's just look at the backdrop of, once again, zero accountability that President Biden has asked for Xi in terms of the China virus, the virus that came from China, and all the havoc that it wreaked here in the U.S. with over 1 million deaths and worldwide. So bottom line is that just demonstrates weakness towards Xi, is that Biden's probably not going to even bring it up in that conversation. That's simply wrong.
Former President Trump in Washington today, first time since leaving office. Talk to us about why he was here. I know you were at the event.
I was at the event. I just came over from the event, and everybody was excited to see President Trump there. And what he's talking about is he's talking about the crime rate that has exploded under this administration, and you have weak policies on crime. And what he was talking about is what he would do and what others would do after 2022 if the Republicans retake the House, retake the Senate, being much tougher on crime and providing better safety for Americans in their cities. If you look at the Democrat-controlled cities across the board, if you look at the top 15 cities, there are huge spikes in the crime rate, and that's just, once again, that's wrong, and that's something that President Trump made sure to have his focus on that in his speech today, and it was a really welcome message.
Yeah, and what do you think needs to be done to bring down the crime rates and make our cities safer?
Well, we need to invest in our police instead of defunding the police, which is what has been done in some of those locales, pushed by national Democrats. But what we need to do is support the police and have more of a police presence out there and make sure that we also have DAs that hold criminals accountable when they are arrested and when they do crimes, that they serve big time. And that is not being done in a lot of these cities where you have George Soros-backed DAs that are completely absent. The switch has been turned off, and they're just not there prosecuting the criminals that are taking action there.
All right. I wish we had more time, but we're out of it. We'll have to have you back on. Thanks, as always, John, for coming on.
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate it.
Up next, an update on the latest violence in Haiti from a religious sister ministering among the people. Police in Serbia have stopped a gang which was smuggling more than 100 migrants from Hungary.
Država Srbija nastavlja s kontinuiranim radom na kontroli ilegalnih migracija.
Serbia's interior minister vows to continue to fight the illegal crossings. Officials found various weapons and hundreds of passports taken from people trying to reach Western Europe. A church leader is calling for international help after 17 migrants from Haiti were killed on Sunday when their boat capsized. The tragedy took place in rough seas in the Bahamas. Officials say the trip was part of a human trafficking operation. The Archbishop of Nassau is calling for international aid to address the poor economy in Haiti. The Caribbean country is also combating an epidemic of gang-related violence. It has led to more than 300 children and adults seeking shelter at a Catholic high school. The violence has spiked in recent weeks. According to a report from the United Nations, in a 9-day period earlier this month, at least 470 people were killed, injured, or remain unaccounted for due to the fighting. Another 3,000 had to flee their homes. And joining us now from Haiti is Sister Paesie, foundress of the Kizito Family religious community. Sister, welcome back. So wonderful to see you. If you don't mind, can you tell us more about daily life in Haiti, what it's like amid the gang violence and also the extreme poverty there?
Daily life is, I would say the main feeling for many people is fear. People are afraid of going out, leaving their houses, but this is especially true in the slum area, where the gangs are having a gang war, which has been particularly violent the last 2 weeks.
And I understand that you've really been trying to help out the children there, taking them to different schools for their safety. Can you tell us more about that and what you're doing?
Yes, what happened is that one of the area in the slum area, which is called Cité Soleil, is being surrounded by other gangs, which are trying to take it over. And so the people there are really scared. And the Kizito family, we had 3 schools there. So our school children tried to escape from there, and they put on their school uniform as a kind of a white flag to pass. And they did manage to cross over last Sunday. And so they came over, and I went to meet them, and I asked different schools to open their classrooms so we could shelter them for a couple of days or weeks. So right now we're having 790 of these children who are in these schools.
And I understand, sadly, that some of the children have lost their lives, the violence going on there.
Yes, over the last few months and particularly in the last few days, there are many loss of lives, including among those children who were trying to escape. One little girl got shot and died, Emanuela, while she was trying to come over. And many others have got bullet injuries, and some have lost their parents, and many have seen very terrible things because they also burned houses, and there were people or babies inside those homes which have been burned. So we saw a lot of violence and terrible things.
It's so hard to imagine. Sister, how has your faith helped you remain calm throughout all of this violence?
I would say, as Scripture says, if you do not stand in faith, you shall not stand at all. So it's particularly true in that context. And God is present. God is in the present moment. God is there, close to these children, even in the midst of these very harsh realities. And like we can see in the schools, within few hours, children start playing again and just being children. So we also experience the providence and the presence of God.
Yeah. And what else, before I let you go, Sister, what else would you like people to know about the situation in Haiti right now? And is there anything that we all can do to help?
Well, the appeal I would do is twofold. First of all, is for press, because people are still being very scared that their area would be actually invaded by these other gangs, which would be even worse, and there would be many more loss of lives. So to prevent that, I think the more people pray, the more hope there would be that this does not actually happen. And also the other appeal I would do is that these children are victims, and of course there are the gang members who are holding the guns in their hands, but this is also coming from elsewhere, because guns are not produced in Haiti. They're coming from abroad. They're coming by containers. So whoever is sending them, I would just ask them, just stop this massacre, because the people who are victims are the most vulnerable and are children.
It's so hard to imagine, Sister, but we thank you for all that you're doing over there for the children and the people of Haiti, and we're praying for all of you. Thank you again for your time. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you too.
Finally tonight, some good news from Spain. The forest fires that have hit the country have now been stabilized. Among the buildings that are safe is a Benedictine monastery. There was a scary moment, though, yesterday. The monks had to leave their cloister for the first time since the 1830s. The move was just a precaution, and reports are that the monastery is safe. The monks are perhaps best known for their recordings of liturgical music in the albums entitled Chant. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.